Good morning and welcome back to another lesson. Today we're going to start talking about trigonometric ratios. Okay, so sine, cosine, and tangent are the three common ones that we will use in geometry. And on any right triangle, there are these three basic ratios that exist. Okay, so we will identify them in a little bit. If you want to write this down, you can. You don't really need to write that definition down. As long as you follow along and understand, we got sine, cosine, and tangent. And these ratios can allow us to determine things about the right triangle. And if these ratios exist, we can find things that are always true because our right triangles are going to be proportional to each other if they have the same angles. Okay? So first thing we want to practice to do here says label the opposite side, the adjacent side, and the hypotenuse of each triangle from angle X. Now, the first thing I want us to do on number one, I forgot to put the right angle in here. So let's go ahead and draw our little box in here because that angle is the right angle. Now, if X is over here, this is the angle we are concerned with. And we have our three sides, the opposite side, the adjacent side, and then the hypotenuse. And we will refer to these as O, A, and H. Now, we've already been talking about the hypotenuse. This is the easiest one to find, so I recommend you do it first. Hypotenuse, we know, is across from the right angle. So here's our right angle. Across from it, that's our H. So I'm going to put H there. Now, opposite and adjacent. Think about what those mean. Adjacent means next to. They share a side. So between these two, only one is adjacent. Now, adjacent means they share the side. So if this is our angle, angle X, both this side and this side would technically be adjacent. We already labeled this as our hypotenuse, though. So adjacent, it is next to angle X. It is part of angle X there. So that's our adjacent. Meanwhile, opposite, like the opposite side of the room is across the room, just like we did last week or earlier this week with our ratios. The opposite one is over here. So there's our opposite. All right, number two, once again, I'm going to label my right angle. Angle X is right in here. Always start with hypotenuse, in my opinion. That's the easiest one to find. So here's our H. It's across from the right angle. It's also the longest side. Okay, now, compared to this angle, adjacent means it's next to, it's going to be a part of that angle. So over here is our A, which leaves this as our O. If you want to try this on your own, go ahead and pause the video. So here's our right angle. The hypotenuse is always across from the right angle, opposite and adjacent. And our final one, here's a right angle. That's the angle we're concerned with. Hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. All right. So the reason we care about these three sides is because if we can determine a ratio using these sides, we can find some stuff out about the angles of our triangle, or vice versa. If we have the angle, we can find out what the side lengths are. Now, the side or the sine, we have a memory trick here to remember the difference between the ratios. So sine, cosine, and tangent. And the way I recommend you memorize it is just in your head, feel a beat, and then SOHCAHTOA, 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 SOHCAHTOA. Okay? Just hear that. If you hear me chanting when you're taking the test, when you're doing your homework, SOHCAHTOA, you'll always remember that. SOHCAHTOA. Okay? You won't forget it. So SOHCAHTOA, what we mean by that is sine of angle A is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. So like O over H. Now, ka, that stands for cosine, is equal to the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. And then toa, tangent, is equal to the opposite side divided by the adjacent. And these ratios will help us out quite a bit. So, SOHCAHTOA, you definitely need to write that down in your notes, have that ingrained in your memory. We should memorize that. Okay. Now, some people might prefer, instead of writing it like this, the other way you could write it, O over H. So ka is A over H, TOA, O over A. And the big letters in this case stand for sine, cosine, and tangent. We've got O over H, A over H, and O over A. Now, these ratios will be helpful, and over the next couple lessons, we will see why. Today, also, let me point out sine. On your calculator, SIN is the abbreviation. Technically, SINE is the full spelling of it. Likewise, cos is COS on your calculator, but cosine right here. Tangent is TAN on your calculator, tangent. So these are the full spellings, but sine, cosine, and tangent can be abbreviated SIN, COS, and TAN. Now, when we are solving, depending if we find angle P or angle Q, we will get two different answers. So I'll do angle P here in blue. So angle P is right here. Now the hypotenuse is 17. The adjacent side is 8. The opposite is 15. So sine, O over H. So it would be 15 over 17. Okay. Now, cosine. So when we're finding cosine, it's A over H. So all we have to do, A is 8, H is 17. The final one, tangent, TOA, O over A. So O is 15, A is 8. Now the thing is, depending on which angle we use, these answers change. So now in red, I'm going to do angle Q here. So angle Q right here would be, the H is going to stay the same. The hypotenuse is always the same. However, 15 would be the adjacent side here. 8 would be the opposite side there. Okay, so if we look here for sine, we know that the sine is still O over H. It's going to be 8 over 17 for the Q. For the cosine, A over H. That one's going to be 15 over 17. And finally, TOA, tangent, is going to be O over A, so it's going to be 8 over 15. Now you might notice, compared to those two angles, the sine and cosine switch places. So they switch places. Meanwhile, the tangent is the reciprocal. All right, so we're just about done for the day. We want to practice a little bit more. So here it says, write the fraction for sine, cosine, and tangent of angle x. So first off, let's identify angle x is up here. Okay, so this is our H, this is our A, this is our O. We need to get very good at labeling those. Okay, now sine, right? SOHCAHTOA. So is O over H. So 3 over 5. Cosine, A over H. So 4 over 5. And finally, TOA, tangent, is O over A. So 3 over 4. All right, our final one now. It says write the fraction for sine, cosine, and tangent of angle x. We're doing the same thing. So angle x is right here. That means this is my H, this is my A, and this is my O. So sine, O over H. So 12 over 13. Cos. Cosine is A over H, so 5 over 13. And finally, TOA, tangent, is O over A, so 12 over 5. All right, now, today's homework is in Delta Math. You're going to do a few of these. Now, the difference is when you are solving them, they don't have a picture for you. So if you have a problem like this, and let me set this up so I can write, and you guys can still see it. All right, so anytime you have a problem like this, I recommend you draw a picture. So it says in triangle VWX, and we're always going to have right triangles when we're dealing with this SOHCAHTOA. So just draw a right triangle. It might not be to scale. That's okay. We just need a right triangle. So I put my little angle in there. That's my right angle. Now it says it's VWX. It says the measure of angle X is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees was X, so that means over here. That's my x. And now the other two, I can just put v and w. And I realized, let me switch this. All right, so actually I had the wrong question up. So let me change this a little bit. Okay, so this time it's ijk, and it says the measure of angle K is 90. So we're going to put the K over here. Okay, now I and J I can put at either spot. So I label I or J. Now it says in triangle IJK, the measure of angle K is 90. IK is 9. So from I to K is 9. So I'm going to put that label of 9. It says JI is 41. So the hypotenuse here is 41. And meanwhile, KJ is 40. So between K and J, it's 40. Now it says what ratio represents the sine of angle I? So angle I is right here. We need the sine, or so, right? O over H. So H, hypotenuse, is right here, 41. O is right there, 40. So the sine of I would be 40 over 41. Now be careful, you have to set this up and then you need to label according to angle I. But if you draw this picture every time, I think it'll be very easy. If you don't draw the picture, I think it'll be difficult. Okay, so 40 divided by 41. I hit enter, hit yes, and as you can see, I got the check mark. So that's all for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hope you guys have a great day.